Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free, Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
I'd like to welcome you to Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm Ray Samich, and I would love to introduce all of you to my longtime radio colleague, my co-host, and my dear spiritual brother, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Want to extend our appreciation for everybody who is joining us on our Stress-Free Living radio channel. We're getting more and more activity on that. And if you would like to be a part of our Zoom audience, which means you would be part of our shows before, during, and after these broadcasts, then you can get the link to join us there on our YouTube channel, Stress-Free Living Radio. You also can, of course, catch all kinds of different shows that have been pre-recorded for you to watch and or listen to at your convenience. Ratanjit, we recently had talked about parenting. We called it Parenting 101, some of the real basics of parenting. And we decided after the show that we would continue to talk about other aspects of parenting, because as you and I have discussed so many times, children don't do what they're told, they do what they see. And if they're not seeing the right things, no matter what we say, then they're going to do the wrong things. And on top of that, there really, as many books have been written on parenting, and I should have Google searched that because it probably has been thousands and thousands of books on how to parent. But the definitive plan to really raise children maybe hasn't been written yet. Maybe that's still waiting on you to actually tell people the real way that they should parent it. So one of the things that came up in a conversation with someone after the show was, why do we fail? Let's start from that angle. Why do we fail to be good parents? We put effort into it. We try hard. We think we're doing the right things, and then the child just doesn't turn out the way we thought. They have really bad habits or bad actions. Maybe at the extreme they commit a crime, or they're just they don't find happiness, so they're very miserable in their life. They can't find employment, whatever it is. Why does that happen ultimately? Can you kind of is there a way that you can put your finger on that and say that there's something missing when that happens?
Well, basically, if you want to build a new house and you want to hire an electrician, you do not hire an electrician who doesn't have the license, who has not gone through training, who doesn't know the code, who doesn't understand. So basically, parenting is the most serious things we do in life, but there is no training for it. No, basically, we suddenly become parents. Many times we don't even want it. And suddenly a child is born and you are confronted. And at that time, it interferes with whatever program, whatever expectation you had from life, because this child is now suddenly put into your life. So many times children are unwanted, but even if they are highly wanted, basically they are our toys. They are our possessions. They are our, because I want to have children. So basically, we do not see as a serious responsibility to have the child which which you which you are gifted and to bring them the right way. So fundamentally, that is what is going on. And secondly, you repeat exactly what has been done to you by your parents. Because if basically that is what the parenting training you remember. And many times you overcorrect something which you didn't like by your parents, and sometimes you undercorrect, and basically you go on the uh, tangents. You don't go in the right path. You do not understand the child is the biggest gift given to you, and you consider that your possession. You consider that is mine, and basically that is fundamentally wrong. And you do not feel grateful, and you do not teach the fundamental software for life, which is gratefulness to the child.
Ratanjit, I think, that is one of the major things that came in the first program. And I think that that is at the very core of understanding this, is that they are a gift. They're not a possession. They're not something that we own. They're something that is a gift to us. But what you said there is really one of the things you said is so accurate, in that we were all children. Every parent at one time was a child, and may in still fact still be. Maybe there's a lot of parents that still have their parents of children now, and their parents are still alive and still with them. So they're still a child and they have a child. And so I think so much of what we do is based on the only way that we really could have learned it effectively, and that is thinking back to when we were a child. And in the homes that were wonderful homes with, even if there was just one parent or two, but if they were raised with values, if they were raised with love, if they were raised with encouragement, if there wasn't violence and harshness that hurt them, but discipline that helped them, then I think chances are they're employing much of those same techniques with their children, because they said, I had a good childhood, I turned out okay, so I'm going to do the same things. But for whatever reason, when I engage in conversations with people, so many of them have an issue or two or three or four that they blame on parenting. They blame on what they didn't receive enough of, how they were, badly treated, whatever that might mean. Some even acknowledging that they were um, they were given too much. They were spoiled. Most of them say they weren't giving enough of whatever it is, time or fun or activities or vacations or whatever. So when you say undercorrecting, overcorrecting, I think that is the norm. I think the great majority of people think they have to do something different. But to be fair, they don't know what that is. They don't know, if they feel they didn't receive enough discipline, how much discipline do they give? I mean, do they give a little bit more because they feel that'll change it, or do they have to give a lot more? Or if they were too strict, do they give a little more freedom, or do they give a lot more freedom? I mean, it is kind of easy to understand how parenting is confusing and how parents don't know exactly what to do. It's it's almost a trial and error method. Okay, did this work? I tried this. Did this work or didn't it work? I mean, can you appreciate that fact that since there is no guideline, there is no, it's not like making a cake where you put in a half cup of flour and a tablespoon of butter. You don't have that formula. You don't have that exact recipe. How do you know how to get it right for your kids, especially when every kid is different? I mean, you always talk about how every human being is different. So does that mean we have to treat every one of our children uniquely because they're unique, or can we raise them all the same?
Fundamentally, we have to change our perception of reality. When a child is born in our family, although it happens through biological process and your mother carries the baby in her womb for 9 months and so on. So mother thinks that she has made the baby, but basically the natural forces inside the body, which you don't even understand and know, construct the baby. And once the reality is understood that this is the gift of the divine which is placed in our home, that is the fundamental. And secondly, the child has to be respected. You have to understand the learning of the child only happens in the early stage through mirror neurons, which are in the brain. Their mirror means reflective. They reflect your habits. They basically copy what you say, what you do, and how you act. So that is the only way you train your children. You inculcate certain habits, certain qualities in a child by having those qualities in you. So before you change anything, you have to comprehend this wisdom and change yourself. And until you change yourself and cultivate the right habits which you want to see in your children, all lectures, all punishment, all training will go waste. And also, when we communicate, it is now the experts tell us that the word we speak only contributes towards the communication only 7%. 39% is the tone of the language. And 55% is your body language. And these two children were playing, and one child said, let's go in the forest and we can explore the forest. So the other child says, no, 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 I can't do that. My father is going to get mad. That means whenever he was angry, he got mad. So all the child basically understood that he's mad. Whatever words he said went over the child's head. So basically the tone of the language is very important. You can never raise your voice. You must always communicate with utmost respect, because the child has the divine power within that child, which is enlivening that child. So that is your God in him. So you do not insult and speak loudly to your God. So basically, if that child is placed in your home, That is the child of the divinity. And you have been selected to upbring the child. So basically, fundamentally, you have to understand these fundamental principles. And you cannot see that my parents did that to me and I turn out to be right, because your ego will never accept that you are not right. You're always going to say, I'm right. So that is
Well,
fundamental.
I think we will say we're not right, but we won't blame ourselves. We'll blame our parents. Okay. We will say that I have faults, but that's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault that put that in there. So either way, you're right. It comes out the same way. Ratanjit, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I hope you were done there. But you've made two vital points here that I think are the foundation for this whole subject. Number one, all the questions that I had just posed a couple minutes ago were all about, what we do with them, how we say this, and how we have to act towards the kids, and how we have to realize things about the kids and our parents and what they did to us or didn't do to us or whatever it is. But it really, the point that you've made that's so strong is it really, none of that matters. What matters is us. What matters is what we do and how we act and how we perform on a daily basis. It so much more important than the words that we speak and trying to even understand the kids, which, is great when we get into that. But at the core, fundamentally, if we don't realize that this is about us and what we need to do and how we need to act ourselves, how we need to be thinking, doing, acting, performing is critical. So that's number one. And then number two is what you did reiterate last week, but it's again important enough to say, is that once we realize it is about what we need to do, the first thing that we need to do is to realize that this child is a gift. It's not a possession. It's not a car that we have in our house. It's not our house that we're paying for around us. It's a gift. And when we come back from our first break, I really want to talk more about that because I think we do look at our children as our possession, and maybe that isn't, we don't mean it to be a bad thing. I think possession and responsibility sometimes go together. Things that we are responsible for, we think we own. And I think we do know we have a responsibility for our kids. So we therefore automatically think we own them. We have a responsibility to keep our house in good order. We have a responsibility to keep our to maintain a good performance at work so we keep our job. We, all of these things that go hand in hand. And I think we can understand the logic that we own our kids because we're responsible for them. But what I want to come back and talk with you is that how do we understand the responsibility that we have for our kids when they're a gift and we don't own them? So be prepared. That's the question I'm going to ask you. We're talking about parenting. What if we fail? How do we fail? Why do we fail? We'll talk more about that on this edition of Stress Free Living. All right. Have 90 seconds for input for those of you that are able to. And thoughts? Oh, pretty quiet here.
So this is Doug. You guys
Yeah, Doug.
you kind of shattered my thought. I've always said that parenting, the kids learn what they learn. 50% of what they learn is what their parents tell them. And you guys are saying that's not the case. And then I said 25% is just watching their parents and doing with their parents. But I think something that's very important, and I tried it with my daughter a lot, is my daughter has great kids. I'm telling you, I'm so proud of those two grandkids of ours. But I tell my daughter and her husband, they've done a great job. They've actually done a great job parenting their kids, and I think that just the encouragement almost puts a little more pressure on them to keep doing a good job, if you will. So I think that parent encouraging their child that has children is very important.
Anybody else have anything real quick to add? If not,
Just
we're on our own. We're going
what
to
is
come
a
back.
good job?
Oh, good. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What is a good job at the end? That is to be defined.
What does it mean to be a good job? Okay. All right. We can ask that. All right, we're back in just a few seconds here. We're back on Stress-Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray, yours truly, Ray Sandwich, with you today, discussing parents and parenting and why we fail at it. Ratanjit, going into the break, talked about two major points. One is it isn't what the kids see, and I'm sorry, isn't what we tell the kids, it is what they see. It comes down to how we act, how we perform, how we analyze and understand, comprehend what it means to be a parent. And one of those things is that we have to acknowledge we have responsibility because they are a gift. They are not a possession. How are we expected to take responsibility, to really be serious about being a parent, and yet give up ownership of them? To acknowledge that they are free, that they are their own individual, that they are a gift that we really don't control, and yet we have an obligation, as you mentioned earlier, sometimes wasn't even planned, wasn't even expected, or maybe even wanted at some point. But now we have this parenting responsibility for them. How does all of that connect?
Fundamentally, Ray, that we believe that we own things. I own a home. I own my car. I own my human body. If I own this human body, that'll last forever. It's taken away without any notice. It is not possible to own anything. Everything is allocated to us temporarily, and depends on what we do with that allocation. That allocation is either enhanced or reduced. Basically, when this allocation, whether it is the knowledge, whether it is the human body, or whether it is the home, or it is the family, or it is the wealth, what we do with those things, if we indulge in those, they get taken away from us. When we somehow add value, make a difference to others, those things get enhanced. So basically, it's like this. Your father gives you $100. So when I was small, in my school, I came into one incident, and that affected me. And I went home and asked my father to give me $100 or 100 rupees in India. And my father says, "Gosh, he's only 5 or 6 years old. Why does he need 100 rupees? So he says, tell me what you're going to do with it. So I said, no, I didn't want to tell him. I just wanted, why don't you give me 100 rupees? So I was crying and throwing tantrums. My father eventually hugged me and kissed me and they said, Ole, here is 100 rupees, but please tell me, maybe I can give you more. So when he said more, then I said, this uh, Rajiv, my classmate, he lost his father. And now he cannot afford the tuition of the school. And he's going to be thrown out of the school. And I want to help him. So my father gave me 500 rupees. So 100 rupees is not enough. So similarly, our bigger Father, our divine power, gives us 100 rupees. If we indulge in 100 rupees, he shrinks that to next time only gives us 50 rupees. But if we help others, if we make a difference, if we add value from that 100 rupees, he increases that by more. So we do not own anything. So this education, this learning is given to a child. It transforms him into a better human being rather than parking him in possession, greed, and ego. If it is reflected by your parents, that is what he is going to or she is going to get. And basically, everything is given to us. We do not own anything. So now things are given to us. We have to take care of them. This human body is given to us. We must take care of it. We cannot indulge this human body because it is going to fall sick. Use of this human body is limited to what we do with it. Similarly, everything in our life is gifted to us. And so what that thing should do is park us in the utter gratefulness. And once you are parked in utter gratefulness, Ray, your human body begins to operate optimally because in the gratefulness mode, your hormones which come out of your body are basically help you. There are neurotransmitters which are like dopamine, serotonin. These things are happiness. They create happiness. They give you higher optimal capacity to do anything. So in order to get full out of this life, you have to put this human body into a condition which is it works optimally. And that condition happens when you park yourself in the utter gratefulness mode. So if you teach the child this mechanism of the secret of power, secret of happiness, secret of a better achievement, secret of becoming a genius is all lied into become unconditionally happiness. And that unconditional happiness, unconditional gratefulness comes from the fact that everything is gifted to us. It begins with this human body, which is a temple of the divine power which resides in it, is gifted to us. And because of this temple gifted to us, I can host the divine power in it, which is giving me life. So, which is again gifted to us. So once You remember these two facts, and always it is going to inculcate in you constant feedback of gratefulness. And that is the best gift, best condition you can park your child into. Right?
And again, as much as you said there and as so well as you spoke it, telling the kids you need to be grateful, saying you need to be grateful all the time isn't enough. They have to see that we are grateful. They have to see it in our actions. They have to not only hear it in our words, but see it in the way we live our life. You know, you had this was many, many years ago, Ratanjit. I'm not sure if you remember it, but I had said something like, 'cause I know you have a beautiful prayer room, and I know you use that in your home, and your wife uses that with you. Dolly uses that prayer room. And I had said something like, "Do you pray a lot?" early on in our relationship. And you said, "Our life should be our prayer." And that made such an impact on me. It still does when I think of those words and I think of that early conversation that we had when I was just getting to know you. And I said, wow, that is so powerful that yes, it's important that we pray, but our whole life should be a prayer. Is like, wow, that is, that's just an amazing thing. If our kids see that our life is our prayer and our prayer is founded in gratefulness, I mean, what an example, what a education we're giving our children, that it's not just when they're yelling at me or telling me what to do or telling me what I should have done and did wrong, but they're actually living their own life as a prayer, and that's the way I should do it. I think understanding gratefulness as a child will be so much easier to comprehend and be so much more meaningful if that's the way that it's done. So let's build on that. Let's build on the idea that we live in gratefulness, and part of the gratefulness should be for the fact that the divine has given us children. Okay. Now, as that being said, that new baby coming into our life brings all kinds of challenges, brings all kinds of expenses, brings all kinds of changes to our lifestyle. So immediately, there's a lot of issues that go on with that baby. As that baby gets bigger and they develop as real thinking, acting kids, they cause aggravation and grief and challenges. And then as they get older and they're young adults, there's different kinds of challenges and sometimes frustrations and aggravations. My point is, it's not easy being a parent. It's not easy oftentimes to acknowledge that this is a gift I even want. If this, sometimes parents might say, if this is a gift, I want to give it back because I don't, this is a lot of pain. There's a lot of sorrow here and grief and frustration that I'm feeling. How can we always be grateful for our children? How can, even through those challenges and the way that we do have to make sacrifices, sometimes a lot of sacrifices, how can we be grateful for that?
Typically, when we sit on the dining table, we say a prayer. God, we are grateful for the food. We are grateful for the house. We are grateful for the family. We are grateful for this and for that. And we count those numbers.
Yeah.
So we are conditionally grateful. To become unconditionally grateful, we have to basically be grateful for the life itself. Because I'm able to see because I'm alive. I'm able to taste because I'm alive. And I'm alive because the divine power is exists in me, like the electricity enlivening a light bulb. So this human body is a light bulb. It only shines, only becomes alive when the divine power is present in this human body. This is a live wire connection to the divine power. So all of us have the same exact divine power. So until I become grateful for that power to exist in this human body, I'm aware of that thing every moment of my life. So it automatically parts myself into grateful mode. And grateful you cannot be for the worldly things. Worldly things are given to you as tools or instruments or things to do what with that? To collectively understand the use of those and add value and serve that divine power which exists in everyone else. They are not our possessions. They are again allocated to us, whether this is a house or is it our talent or is it my energy or is it my foresight or is it my thinking, it is my creativeness. All those are gifted to me to serve that divine power which exists in others. So basically, that is the purpose of our existence. That purpose had to be grinded in that child. So you have to make that child experience that. So you are taking that child into conditions which is allowing him to help you serve others and allowing you to think in terms of what is the solution to this problem? How do we solve this problem? Basically, instead of a small child considering him as undergrown, small baby, you involve him in all the major decisions of life. And you will be basically sparking him that mindset of adding value, because everything you are doing is coming from the mindset of serving the divinity present around you and others. So that thinking has to be inculcated in you and your family. Your life would change dramatically. You will have higher success, and also at the same time you are embedding those conditions, those mindsets in your child, because child is going to copy what you are doing, right?
Ratanjit, we've spoken before about gratefulness. We've had a lot of shows that include that element. When we are in a grateful mindset, when we have that in our heart, the challenges, we look at those challenges so much differently. We our analysis of the problem, the way it affects us right up front, the way that we are, if you don't have a grateful heart and you get a severe challenge, maybe the worst conceivable challenge, a death or a tragic incident that really changes the paradigm of your life. If you don't have a grateful heart when that happens, it truly is shattering. It truly is devastating. If you are living with a grateful heart, whatever those challenges are, and hopefully they're not as significant as the ones I just mentioned, but they're just day-to-day challenges that we all have. I think we look at those almost as a little bump in the road. We just look at those as like maybe even an opportunity for us to apply our ability to add the highest value for something else to be grateful for. You know,
Basically,
it doesn't bring us down, it lifts us up in a way.
basically, if I go to a doctor, normal checkup, and suddenly doctor finds something unusual, and he says, we have to do some more tests. And after doing more tests and more visits, and suddenly doctor sits me down and said, Ratanjit, I have very bad news. You have this cancer in your such and such part, which is now in the more than fourth stage. You have only 3 months or 4 months to live. And then he says, but look, I have this new drug, and we are going to try. This has maybe 5 or 10% chances. And so we started this new treatment. 3 months, 4 months go by, 6 months go by. And then suddenly, after screening was done, and doctor came out and said, Ratanjit, I have good news. Your cancer is completely gone. You have lease of new life. So when I get out of that office, any small problem which exists in my life has no significance, because I have been gifted a lease for new life. But the reality is, every single moment we are gifted the lease of new life, which we have taken for granted. So we should have that mindset which gives us unconditional gratefulness. You automatically small problems have no meaning. You will solve them. You will confront them, because you have least biggest gift in life is life itself. And we don't realize that gift is given to us every moment of our life. And that is why we should be grateful. And that is the message you implement and implant in the mind of the young child. And they will understand that. Every moment you look in the mirror and you can see, you can feel you are alive. That gift is given to you. Right?
You know, it's 80, I think the number is 86,000 seconds in a day, 86,000 reasons every day to be grateful, right? For every second that passes. We are talking today about parenting. We've kind of moved over a little bit to be grateful for maybe parking ourselves in gratefulness is one of those big solutions. We're going to kind of retract and track these down. And I want to bring up one other major issue about security, feeling secure, and how we can instill that in our children. We're coming back on parenting, today's stress-free living topic. We'll be right back. All right, taking a quick break. Ratanjit, Neil E. just entered the waiting room. Does that name ring a bell with you? Neil E.? They just came through and I don't recognize it. I'm a little reluctant to bring them in right now.
Nearly? Yeah.
E. Yeah, it does? Okay. He just popped up here. Anybody have a quick comment that you'd like to share? Or a question you want me to ask?
Yeah, I agree that we should be teaching gratitude and other things, but when the child grows up and he goes in the society, he's sort of captured by the capitalist forces and other social forces, and he feels that his parents are wrong who taught him gratitude.
Mm.
So, and the total education system in which we put him, and the very first day it starts with competition and other things. So instead of oneness, he starts immediately thinking that the parents were wrong. And that is what I feel that goes a long way in, well, when you started, what overdoing or underdoing you said about our parents, it starts the same way. The same paradox starts again and again.
I don't think we disagree that there's a lot of challenges out there that can deter what we have put in our children. Ratanjit, that's kind of another topic for another show. What happens when you get those attitudes that turn the children against the parents? But I mean, we can't. I don't know how we can control that. We hopefully will instill those values deep enough where they will acknowledge us. We're back. Welcome back to Stress Free Living. Ratanjit Sandhi and Ray Samich with you today, talking about parenting. And we're having some informal conversations with our Zoom audience in between our segments. And we invite you and encourage you to become a part of that. If you'd like to find that link, go out to our Stress Free Living channel on YouTube, and you can get the link so you can join us for all of our shows. Ratanjit, so many things that we talked about here today, and I want to restate them, okay? How it starts with us. It starts with not our kids. It starts with the fact that we have this responsibility, that we need to take this seriously, that even if we didn't expect it or didn't necessarily want it, we now have it, and we need to live this. And secondly, we need to understand that this is a gift, that we are not owners. We don't own our kids. They're a gift to us, and we need to do that in a spirit of unconditional gratitude. And I know these are major thoughts, and we've been talking about them over 2 shows. So we encourage people who maybe are coming in late now to go back and listen to these, how we've developed those topics, because I think all 3 of those are just critical in understanding how to be a parent. There's one thing that I really wanted to bring today to the show, because for whatever reason, I'm running into more people of all ages, but especially those in their young adult years, in their 20s and 30s, who are exhibiting what I can see at an older age, real insecurity, real, um, whether they show ego, whether they show um, other emotions that are trying to compensate for it, but they are really, you can really see that they have tremendous insecurity within themselves. They do not have confidence in themselves, and therefore they can't be the person that they really are inside. So I try to peel away those layers as I talk with them and get to know them and build a relationship with them. And I see a whole different person inside of that insecurity. How can we as parents help to make our children so they are more secure with who they are in their own life?
Until parents themselves are secure, they cannot raise secure children. And security does not come from the worldly things, money, house, training, all these things, which are false securities. Security basically comes from your inner desire to serve the being. Now, supposing you are a child, 13, 14, 15, 16 years, and you have been brought up with this mindset of serving. So you have this idea because basically every human being born in on this earth is unique. So you have to tell the child there are unique capabilities built in that child, and he has or she has to use those unique capabilities to add the highest value. So this young child comes up with an idea which can be translated into adding the highest value. And this he formulates that into a business venture. Because that idea is so strong, he would get investment into that idea from people who are looking for unique ideas. And in spite of having no money, this idea will be financed, and this child will become extremely rich. But this is not coming from being insecure at that moment when he did not have, or she did not have enough funds to fund this mission. So this is exactly how it happens. Or security comes from your belief in the idea which is going to add the highest value. It is not going to come from the money or talent or those things. Those are always acquired. They come and go. Your inner security comes from the power within you, because once you realize that ultimate power is within you, and it is going to allow you to think in a much more creative ways. You know, basically, all those games we play, whether it is basketball or football or tennis or anything, we are trying to perfect our idea to put this ball into a hoop. Initially, it's very difficult by practicing. So initially, a lot of people, because of their ego, no, I cannot exhibit this because people are going to laugh at me. I don't want to be laughed. So they go away. And person who is dedicated into that eventually becomes a better player. So ultimately, you have to bring your child into that confidence that her or his confidence is not tied into material things. Her inner confidence is tied into the uniqueness that child has and the power which has unlimited ideas and values and conditions which can impart into you, which is existing into you. You secure your children into the security which exists in the life itself, the power which enlivens you. All the other securities are pseudo security. They are short lived, they go in and out. So until you park your child into the true security, the child will never be secure. Right?
I can't say anything about that because it was just so brilliantly stated. Ratanjit, that was a masterpiece. I just want to reiterate one early part that you said is that we can't allow our children to be secure. They will not learn what it means to be secure unless their parent has security. So everything you just voiced over the last 10 minutes, people can rewind it and listen to it. Anything that you just said that we are supposed to be showing our children, that our children should be understanding, the parent has to understand. If the father and the mother don't get what you just said, there's no way the child will ever learn it. And for whatever reason, that isn't being known right now. I just don't feel that that's being understood and practiced. So it makes perfect sense why today's kids are growing up without that security. Just so brilliantly stated. Ratanjit, thank you for sharing again so many wonderful thoughts about parenting and gratefulness and security and love and all these other things that we share on this show. We appreciate so much everything you share with us. And thank you for being our audience, for being out there on the other sides of your radios, computers, however you're listening to us these days. It doesn't matter. We're just glad you're here. Remember, we're all playing the same game. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right. We are clear.
You can open your mics and
Yep. If you'd like to share, we know that
or
Brian,
questions.
Brian still doesn't have audio. He says he can't talk with us, but he can hear us. But for everybody else, please feel free to share your thoughts.
Hey Ray, this is On here.
Yes.
Hi, On.
Hi.
Morning.
Good to
Morning. Welcome.
stretching session. Uh, you know, I would be very grateful to Ratanjit ji if he can reflect upon one of the point that he has mentioned in his book, How Oneness Changes Everything, on unconditional gratefulness, when he spent some time with his own daughter Nisha, and that conversation between father and daughter, I think, was very enriching. If you can reflect back on that point, I'll be really grateful.
I think Ray remembers that. You know, Nisha, when she was 12, 12 years of age, and one day she missed her bus. So I said, no, I'll take you to the school. So we, because the bus would go through the route and all that, it would take a little longer time. So in car, we had a little more time. And she said, can we stop at McDonald's and have some breakfast? I said, sure. So we stopped at McDonald's, and while we are having breakfast, so I asked Nisha, I said, Nisha, I have a strange question. So she says, okay, well, what's that question? Say, okay, think about it and then answer. I said, you have been such a good girl, and supposing God appears and says, my child, you have been such a good girl, so I want to give you one wish, whatever wish you want. So what is your wish? So what would you ask God to give you? So now she thinks, she says, so can I consult my dad? I said, sure, you can consult your dad. So she says, if I ask God to give me long life, and then eventually all my other friends or people would pass away, I'll be left lonely and I'll be old. So I don't want that. So I said, okay. So how about some wealth? So supposing I have a lot of wealth, God can give me all the wealth I may need. So suddenly the biggest pleasure when I convince you to buy me something, and when I get that thing, and the feeling of gratefulness which I get, that is amazing. Not the thing, but the feeling of gratefulness. So if I have all the money, I can buy anything. So I don't have to consult, and that feeling is going to be not there. So I said, okay. So how about knowledge? If God gives you knowledge of everything. She says, yeah, that is good. Then she says, but then people will not talk to me because they'll call me know-it-all. I'll know everything. Because respect and care comes from when somebody tells me something new, and immediately I have respect, and immediately I feel grateful for the knowledge which I gain. So then I said, so what do you want? God is giving you one thing. So after 5 minutes or so of thinking, she says, can God give me that feeling of utter gratefulness which I get when I convince you to buy me something, or when I gain certain amount of knowledge? So can I have the feeling of gratefulness? So then that is when I learned the unconditional gratefulness. My daughter taught me what was the unconditional gratefulness. On, that's what you wanted?
Absolutely, Ratanjit ji. I think this story is so refreshing, and I think every child or every parent who even gets to experience this story through you is going to be life transforming. At least for me, it brings that tears in our eyes that whenever we listen through you. And I would recommend people who have not read the book should go and read this book. This is in a part of the book, and we're so grateful that we get to hear it from the author and the person who lived it. So thank you so much for sharing and reflecting on it.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for this session, Dada. Sorry I couldn't attend the first half of the session, but the latter half, I think we all enjoyed. We were having like a lovely family gathering. So we just turned this on the TV, on my telephone, and we streamed it for everyone. So everyone over here really enjoyed the session. Should I turn on the camera?
Yeah, just
there you go. So that's me.
Thank
Here we go.
Hi.
My family friend, Dr. Krishna. He's a chemist. And
Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome. So
that is
did
the lovely man. And that
very good. Thank you.
we really enjoyed it.
Very nice. Thank you for being with us today, for sharing.
I had to.
Ratanjit, I've read that story and I've heard that story, but it's been a long time. So that was so powerful. Beautiful way to share that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we have you can buy books online now, audible books and things like that, where the author reads the book, but when you actually have it as a story that you share, it even makes it that much more powerful. Beautiful. You're not just reading it, you're sharing it from within. Very nice. Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas to share today? Questions? All
I
right.
think we put everybody to sleep.
No, not at all. We just put us
I-
at peace, at rest. That's all. There's a difference.
So I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I think that the last 10 minutes when Ratanjit was talking about all that really was amazing. I agree with you, Ray. I think that was an amazing 10 minutes, and too bad that he can't get that to every potential parent so that they realize every individual's an individual, if you will, and that would be great somehow. I don't know how you do that, but a lot of young couples go through counseling, marriage counseling, if you will. Maybe they could throw that 10 minutes in there with parenting as well as being a husband or a wife would be fantastic. But anyway, I just want to comment. I thought it was fantastic, and Ratanjit, you always amazed me with things that you know and can say and how you say it. So you did it again.
It runs in the family. We are cousins.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I have one more question popping in my mind.
Please.
This is again. I would love if Ratanjit ji can reflect upon. I remember distinctly Ratanjit ji mentioning that the seed of oneness was planted within him by his mother. If Ratanjit ji is kind enough to explain how that seed was planted, so that the parents in and around who are listening to this call would also get some ideas in how to implant that seed of oneness?
My mother would always plant questions in my mind. So when I was, I think last show we said this, we told the story, and I don't know, you were not here in that. Once I was 6 or 7 years old, and there was an event in my school, and there was some sort of a competition, and I won that competition. So I was given a trophy, and I brought it home, and I was very proud of trophy, and my mother hugged me and kissed me and all that, and then I told my mother, what my principal told me, that one day, Ratanjit, you are going to make a name for yourself. So my mother looked at me and she says, there is a small problem. You have to know your name before you can make a name for yourself. I said, I know my name. My name is Ratanjit. He said, no, that's what I call you because I didn't want neighbor's voice to show up when I call you for dinner. So I don't know your name. So what is your name? So until you know your name, you cannot make a name for yourself. So I said, so how do I find out? So this kind of conversation, which I had with my mother, and so she said, I cannot tell you the name, but I can tell you the wisdom which can help you find your name. And I cannot give you that wisdom. I can only give you the key for that wisdom. And I said, what is the key? She said, it will take your life long to even decipher that key. I cannot decipher the key. I said, but what is the key? Key is oneness. So like a small baby, I said, what is oneness? You are here and I'm here. We are two. So that is why it is very difficult to decipher that key. So, and think about that. So that question stayed in my mind forever. So that's how this oneness was introduced by my mother.
Truly profound, Ratanjit ji, because planting these questions at early age, I think is where such a beautiful tree that we are experiencing today. So we are very grateful to your mom for doing that, and I think it's a great learning for all the listeners on the call. Thank you so much for sharing this personal story.
Thank you.
Ratanjit ji, we have one very eminent guest with us. Not because he's with us, he's eminent. He's actually very eminent. His name is Dr. Krishna. And we were having some wonderful conversation with him on chemistry. Probably I just want to introduce to him. I don't think he has some questions right now because he has not had so much of exposure, but he just wants to say hello to you.
Hello, Ratanji. Namaskar, actually.
Can you open your this thing and share your?
Oh, yes. Sure.
We can do your darshan.
Yeah, that's okay. No. Seriously, I'm privileged that I'm actually I got a chance to listen to your talk because it reminded me of my interactions with my grandfather, who is not alive anymore. But these were the kind of things he used to share with me. These are priceless, like sort of things that we should be learning from the early stages, because that's what build our personalities. And that actually reminded me, because we were just having a conversation day before yesterday about a profound example that we all know about, Martin Luther King. And the parenting, exactly setting that example of the parenting example that you were talking about. Martin Luther King's dad used to take him to these Jilla meetings. And exactly, he used to set up those examples for Martin Luther King, like sitting in a circle together, being the last person to speak, listening to everyone, and respecting everyone, that humility that he had, that oneness, the groundedness. And actually, Martin Luther King got all of this by the live example that his father demonstrated in front of him, in front of everyone, and how he acted along with other people. And obviously, we know now Martin Luther King as Martin Luther King. And that's, and that, it just connected all together, because now we are hearing from you the same values that we were just discussing also a little bit about it day before yesterday. So thank you so much, actually, for your. I'm glad I was visiting them just now, and I managed to listen to all of this. So
oh, thank you, wonderful. It reminds me a quote from Martin Luther King, and he says, "It really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Basically, oneness.
That is amazing, right? I will take a record of this quote as well. Actually, I hadn't heard of this before, but this is great. Yeah, thank you. So they told me that you are a chemist, actually, and they told me about your discovery as well and your contributions.
What happens is, any subject you study,
right,
you honestly, when you confront that, you understand how little you know about that subject.
True. So spot on, actually. Seriously.
When you in a stadium full of 80,000 people, when you ask an ordinary person, can you describe how the brain works? They give you the lecture, how the brain works.
Yeah.
But if you found a neurosurgeon and you ask him how the brain works, if he's honest, he's going to say, basically, we don't know.
Yeah.
This is what we know. So education really is supposed to make you humble.
True.
The more you know, the little you know.
Yeah, that is very true. And that is also the most important thing for us to keep growing as well. Again, connects back to humility.
Yeah. And another thing about knowledge is the knowledge, you talk about it, you lecture about it, you write books about it, but you never live it.
Right.
You live your habits. Until you convert your knowledge into your habit, it is not going to add any value to you.
True. That is very true.
That is why a doctor's family is cursed, because they are constantly given pills. Not every doctor. Sorry.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Ratanji. And
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.